week's Coffee with Clover, we highlight Tariff and how it's affecting our Canadian economy. In the kitchen with our chef cooking up some delicious Canadian Caribbean fusion. Plus, importance of wellness with our fitness coach and universal basic income explained. All this coming up on Coffee with Clover. Today, I have a very interesting person. He's a professional chef for 20 plus years. Please help me welcome Ryan Hamilton. Ryan, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. So how long you've been cooking? Exactly. 20 plus years?
Approximately 24 years.
And what do you have for us today?
Well, today I have a fusion, Canadian staple poutine, and then we fused it with oxtail from the Caribbean.
I know poutine is normally fries and gravy. So you add in, what are you adding to it?
So today we added oxtail to the poutine. So it's a Caribbean, it's well known in the Caribbean as a delicacy. So we just mix the poutine with the oxtail. And so Caribbean people can try it, and Canadian, so it's a Canadian Caribbean fusion.
Fusion. Okay, so let's get into it. So this is restaurant style.
Correct.
All right. Okay, what do you have here now?
So we have the oxtail, right? So this is the meat. So basically what I do, I slow cook it for 4 hours, marinate it for 24 hours, and then I shred it.
Season first, though.
Yeah, we season it, yes.
Okay.
Right, so we shred it, and then we have our fries.
Turn. So is it going to be bone in, or the bones will
No,
go?
it's boneless.
Oh, boneless.
Yeah, yeah.
Boneless,
so it's
oxtail.
boneless oxtail.
Okay.
Right? And then, of course, we have our gravy.
Can you tell us a little bit about the gravy? What's in that?
So the gravy is veg based so that everyone can enjoy. So if you're a vegetarian, you have nothing to worry about. It's veg based.
So if I'm a vegetarian, I do not want the oxtail. The gravy will do.
Yes, the gravy will do. So regular poutine is just gravy, cheese, right? And the fries.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so we're just adding the meat, which is the oxtail, to the poutine.
So everything goes on top?
Yes, so the meat is going to go on top.
You want to do that for us?
Okay.
Okay.
So we're going to put the oxtail on top.
Does it come hot from the pot, or after putting it together, then you will get it warmed?
No. So it does come hot, right? So we do the fries, drop the fries in the fry basket, right? We prepare the oxtail ahead of time, so when the customer order their meal, right, the steak, fries, we put the cheese on top, just like this.
How much cheese are you using?
This is a Canadian cheese curds.
Is this the amount for a serve?
Yeah, so we pre-portion everything, even the gravy, right? So when a customer order, like I said, we drop the fries, we grab the cheese, we get the meat, we put place the fries in the container, we put the meat on top, then we put the cheese, then we get our gravy.
And saturate everything.
Right, and we pour the gravy just like this.
Okay.
Right? See that? That's already mouth-watering.
And then you get the cheese to melt after?
Yeah, the cheese will melt the gravy because the gravy is hot, so the cheese will melt.
Okay.
Right? And then I have a special sauce. It's called yao sauce.
What's in that sauce?
I can't tell you.
Oh.
Because it's a secret.
It's a secret ingredient.
Right? Everyone wants to know. So then I just top it off with this sauce, just like that.
Okay, that's interesting. Is
Very
it spicy?
A little bit, just a hint of spice. I can give you one of the secrets, the Scotch bonnet pepper.
Oh, can I try it?
Oh, absolutely. Let's have a taste.
You pray for me.
Yeah. It's not spicy for you.
No, it's mild.
It's mild.
It's mild, yeah. It's a little sweet. Yeah.
That is it. So everyone wants to know what the sauce is, but I can't say.
It's your secret recipe.
It's a secret recipe.
So this is a takeout order.
Yeah. So you can have it to go, or you can just sit in the restaurant and have it.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming and sharing your secret sauce and your fusion recipe, Canadian Caribbean fusion.
Oxtail poutine.
Oxtail poutine. Thank you so much.
You're very
Don't go
welcome.
away. We have more coming up. Welcome back. My next guest is here to speak on health and wellness. Please help me welcome founder and head coach of Blacksmith Performance, Will Haywood. Will, thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah,
Glad you
pleasure to
could
be
make
here.
it. Okay. So you have been the founder of Blacksmith Performance. What's it behind the Blacksmith?
Blacksmith, interesting question. That happens to be a playoff of my dance name. So I'm actually a pioneer of the crump dance style in Toronto. It's a dance style that originated in Los Angeles.
Oh, you dance also?
Yes,
Great.
and just connected me with movement and helps me and allows me to really engage with how I express movement, how I explain movement. So from that, when I created my name, Blacksmith, I knew right then and there it's gonna totally align with my brand when I get into fitness because one, a blacksmith is a service person to their community, and it also relates to forging, creating, reshaping, which is what I want to do and how I help my clients, not only with reshaping their mindset, but their bodies and their lifestyle.
Okay. So in helping clients reshape, you study psychology and then you stuck on being a fitness coach. How did you get started in that?
Well, I initially started off with kinesiology. I knew I wanted to get into fitness when I got to school. And I interned at a gym. I started training and leading classes. And I realized there was a little bit of a disconnect with how I was able to help with people, how I was able to get them motivated, understand their mindset. So I switched into psychology to learn a little bit more about the mind, the study of psychology, even understanding studies. That was a big part in my education. So it was very helpful. And even all the other courses I've taken since then definitely tie in with psychology. So in terms of helping people with their sleep and stress management, in terms of helping people with their nutrition, it's not only those concepts, but the mindset around it.
And in helping all these people, you are doing corporate fitness. Is it corporate fitness? So
Yes,
you work with
corporate wellness.
businesses, corporate wellness.
Yes.
So you work with businesses for their staff to get healthier. Which boss then would want to have such interest in making sure their staff is healthy?
Yes. Well, a lot of leaders, whether that's the owners, the CEOs, the founders of these companies, or even like head of different departments. So a lot of companies are really shifting their mindsets and looking to support their employees in different ways, whether that's benefits and different perks. A big challenge that I notice is that some of these responsibilities fall on the head of HR, which can be challenging because they're already dealing with different things like, hiring, employee support, and all the other things that help the business run. So what happens with the wellness is it becomes more of a nice to have versus an actual culture of the company. So that's where I come in. I also have my expertise with essentially helping their staff and employees, right, in more of a one-on-one relationship. And I'm essentially extrapolating the work that I do for the company, whether that's with leading fitness classes, I'm teaching, I'm educating on workshops, or I might be doing stretch therapy, which is very popular and a lot of people enjoy that.
But I'm thinking though, for corporate, how does it work? Will it be on the, because these folks are at work, is it on their lunchtime that you will see? Is it a group of people before you get to a one-on-one? How do you do that?
So the structure is different. It depends on every organization. Usually it's during lunch hours. It could be anywhere between 10 to 4. That's typically when I work with most companies. And yes, it could be group. Sometimes it's at their lunch hour, whether I'm leading a fitness class. Sometimes I'll lead stretch therapy, which is a one-on-one service and offering where I would take them through stretches on my table, which is focusing on the fascia tissue, and people would rotate. So they'd book their time and then pop in, pop out, whether it's on their lunch break, whether they have certain schedules that they know is going to work for them, and they can take their time and self-care throughout the day.
So they come in as a group, but it leads into individual sessions with you.
Classes, fitness classes are in a group. Workshops, educational workshops, those are in groups. The stretch therapy is one-on-one.
So can stretch therapy be done and you get back to the office, or you get home?
Yeah, so stretch therapy is really cool. It focuses on fascia tissue, and not a lot of people know what fascia is, but it's essentially the tissue that's right underneath our skin. For anyone that's worked or handled food, if you look at chicken when it's raw, right underneath the skin when you're pulling it up, that sort of slimy tissue. So that's fascia, but it's really cool under live tissue.
So
right?
that needs to be strengthened?
That needs to be strengthened, stretched, moved all the time. It's essentially the tissue that holds us up and holds us together. So a lot of people think it's our muscles and our bones that holds us up, but it's actually the fascia, the way the fascia ties in and connects through the bones, to the organs, surrounds muscle bellies and muscle fibers. That has sort of this tense principle and this sort of tensioning around it. It's called tensegrity. So it's able to hold our body and allow us to withstand against gravity. If you're constantly sitting or you're constant in certain positions, you're going to have fascia around your hips. That's going to be tight. Now the fascia that's going upstream around your back, around your shoulders, that's going to also be tight, and you're going to have a cascade of issues there. So working on the fascia allows people to just bring more awareness of how that tissue feels and what's happening into their body. So that's what's really exciting. And a lot of people who do experience fascia stretch therapy, they're more inclined and excited to start doing other things for their body, because now they have more awareness, like, oh, this is how my hips feel, or oh wow, I'm seeing more progress. Yeah.
So do you have to follow up on fascia, or how often do you have to do it?
That's definitely a case-by-case basis. Definitely starting off with one time a week and just experiencing that for the 20 minutes is going to go a long way. So on top of the stretch therapy and anything that's related to stretch is you want to focus on strengthening that new range of motion. So what happens a lot of times, even with yoga, for example, people will get these great stretches and they'll feel, oh, I'm so long and I'm so loose, but they don't build strength in these new areas and new ranges of motion. So people will take yoga class time after time, and then they might not take it for a couple of weeks, and it feels like they're starting from scratch again. It's like, what happened to all that work I've been putting in? So you want to, yes, be mobile, and we work on getting loose, and I'll take them through different areas and allow them to get further and deeper into the stretches. Near the end of the therapy, I'll have them activate and create tension in these new ranges of motion. So now this area that I couldn't have access to before, say they can only bring their arm up here, now they can bring their arm up here. Now we want to work on building strength in this area. So now it's active. Now I can actively always bring my arm up here, and then continuing the cycle, continuing to improve.
Is it with music, or, because I'm thinking everyone needs a fascia stretch, right?
Yeah.
So is it with music that they work with?
Sometimes I'll put on like light, sort of lo-fi, relaxing music, something jazzy.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, it really gets them to be calm. A big part with that treatment is getting your nervous system to relax. So sometimes people will be stressed, overthinking. I really want to pull them out of their head, out of their day, and into their body. As we're going through the treatment, I'll cue them on breathing. So taking deep breaths in, inhale, exhale. And one thing that's pretty cool is that when I start to hear like some stomach gurgling, that gives me a signal, is like, okay, your nervous system is relaxed. Our nervous system is connected to our gut. And when we start to relax, it's called rest and digest. So that's when our digestive system is operating, when it's truly relaxed. So when I hear some gurgling, I'm like, okay, now we're in a good spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So have you gotten any feedback from the CEOs who have sent their workers over to you to get help? What are some of their feedback?
Some of the main feedback is really afterwards. So not only on the day of, people express their gratitude, they enjoyed it, they feel different, they're moving different, just feeling more alive, more energetic, more confident, more aware of their movement. But it's actually the time after, when I'm not there, where it starts to spark a little bit of activity in the company culture, right? So people are talking about their fitness. People are, asking, hey, did you get some movement in today? Or, hey, what exercise did you do? So that's how it starts to shift the company culture. On top of the hours and the time that I'm actually there, people begin to look for ways that they can be healthier on their own and be more inquisitive and learn, start to take more action outside of these benefits that I'm bringing in.
Okay. You work on the mind. And one of your posts, you said you work also on sleep. How do you work on sleep if they're not with you?
Yeah. So sleep is a big thing. And a lot of the ways that I help corporate companies is by bringing that education in. But more so with my clients one-on-one is we have habits that we aim to build. So sleep is the best supplement you can have. People are looking in the pharmacies or your health food stores looking for the best supplement. Sleep is by far the best thing you can do. It's going to help you recover. It's going to improve your skin. It's going to improve your nervous system, your alertness, reset your mind, and just allow you to heal and recover from the day-to-day stress. So what I aim to do is essentially see where people are, meet them where they're at, and then we improve their sleep based on what's going on within their own lifestyle.
So if one cannot sleep and they have to resort to other stuff, you'll try to find out what's going on and you give a sense of direction.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So I'm really looking to help people and understand their story. That's a big thing, right? Mm-hmm. So someone who is, single versus someone who is, living with someone else at home, has a different sleep schedule, someone who works a night shift, people who are parents, people who travel a lot for work. I have to take all of these things into consideration.
Oh, okay.
There's definitely going to be things that people have no control over, and then also things that we do have some control over. So assessing what's going on in your life and what we can actually control and do.
You have six basic principles towards training smarter. How does that work?
So that's a great question. I noticed with a lot of people who are looking to make changes, when you think of, new year, new you, a lot of people will start and do something and then fall off.
First thing is going on a diet.
Yeah. So a lot of people have these big ambitious goals, but there's a lot of things that aren't clear and distinct. So I've come up with a system that tends to work a lot and frequently with a lot of my clients. So I start off with assessing and gathering data. So we want to know, number one, like how often are you working out? What's your eating look like? Where you're in pain, how you'd rate your pain, what's going on in your environment, where do you live, what's your social settings, what do you have access to? So really trying to build those things in. That's going to give me some sense of what our baseline is. The second step is understanding their story, right? So as I mentioned, everyone has different lifestyles. It's very easy to get distracted, especially on social media. You're going to see things like, you should be doing CrossFit, you should be doing HIIT, you should be doing Pilates. All of these things are great, but what does that mean to you? What does that mean to your lifestyle, right?
You get
what
confused.
do you enjoy? You get confused, right? So you want to understand, what is your story? If you're someone that is, again, a new parent, right? If you're someone that is experienced, you have some background in fitness, but you've fallen off, you've had an injury. Again, you're someone that travels a lot for work. You're someone that's new to the country. All of these things are going to be totally different from person to person, and it's going to affect how you approach fitness and how you're able to stick with fitness. So that's part 2. Part 3 is going to be strategizing an action plan. So now that we have all this information, we can start to say, okay, this is where we're going to work from. Now, what are our actual goals? Where are we going to be working towards? We want a bullseye. We want a target to aim for. Sometimes people will say, you mentioned they want to go on a diet. What is your target, right? Sometimes people will say, I want to lose 50 pounds. And I say, why not 49? Why not 51, right? So really challenging that thinking and understanding what is the specific goal that you have in mind, why you have that goal. Now we're starting to build a puzzle a little bit more. And now we can go into step 4 is choosing a next action to take.
Okay.
So from there, we can choose 1, maybe 2 habits. Often people are going to do so many things. They want to change their diet. They want to work on their sleep. They want to go to the gym 6 times a week, 7 times a week. They want to do mobility.
Gradually, right?
Yeah,
Gradual.
we need to be gradual and we need to build consistency. A big part, especially with the new year, new me, new year, new you sort of attitude is that people will start something and then they'll fall off and then they'll get discouraged. They'll fail. maybe they'll follow up another 2 weeks
It has
later.
to be intentional.
Has to be very intentional, right? So you're focused, you know what you want to do, and then what happens is that when you have these goals, you complete them, you check them off. Okay, you may be 5 out of 7 during the week, 4 out of 7, 5 out of 7. Then you'll start to build more consistency. And what happens is you get excited, you feel good, and that's going to lead to momentum and confidence with building other habits and new habits.
Okay, what's the fifth step?
The fifth step is observing and monitoring your progress. So as I mentioned, people might be, doing things 4 out of 7 times in the week, 5 out of 7 times. That's great. Those are good wins. If we're looking for 7 out of 7, how can we make it better? How can we improve? So the same thing with a lot of my clients who are, entrepreneurs, busy professionals. They know about KPIs, right? So they're tracking these metrics within their own job and within
What's
their work.
KPI?
Key performance indicators.
Okay.
So different
key,
ways.
Key or keep?
Key.
Key performance indicators. Okay.
Yes. So there are ways that people might track different things within their business to make decisions. So you want to do the same things when it comes to your own fitness and lifestyle. So what are we looking at? How often am I getting in my workouts? Where am I falling short? And then you make the tweaks from there. And then the last step is just ensuring that we analyze and evaluate those results. So we've been tracking, we've been measuring, and now from there, we're going to say, hey, this has been working. I'm going to be consistent with it. Then I'm going to start to see my physique change. I'm going to start to see my energy improve. I'm going to get closer to my goals. Or if things haven't been working, you make those changes. And I find that a lot of the challenges are that people will tend to just try the same thing over and over without actually assessing and seeing what needs to be changed.
Okay.
So that system tends to work for a lot of people to see success.
Okay. So you're consistent with them until there's changes. You also do coach messaging and check-in calls. That's for individual clients.
Yes.
What do you say to your clients when you do messaging or you do a call?
I allow them to say more. I'm big on listening and just allowing people to speak on what's going on with them. So, for example, if I'm starting off with a new client, we've been training for a couple weeks. That check-in is very key because we need to, again, assess, see what's going on, what's been working, how they've been enjoying the training. It's also great feedback for me to make sure that I'm able to meet what's important, right? Am I providing enough? Am I giving them enough support? Am I overloading them a little bit too much, giving them too much information? Do they feel a little bit too challenged? So those check-ins are really important for us to make sure we're on the same page. And also sometimes just sit in some of that discomfort, right? So sometimes just allowing people to speak and understand what's going on with them, just connecting with a professional. Sometimes you don't have that, right? You're just in the internet, in the cosmos,
Yeah.
or just typing and,
relax.
oh my gosh, I have this going on. Speak with a professional, get it out, and I'm here to listen and then be honest with you, right? So often people will, feel stuck and confused. You have someone to speak to and sit in that discomfort. But what happens is when you sit in that discomfort, you're able to make change.
So you will actually help them to get on a schedule and stick to that schedule.
That could be part of it. But again, everyone's situation is going to be different. I'm going to identify what's going to be important and what's key.
Okay. So how often should this be consistent to the point where they don't need you anymore? Do you have to keep checking in for the year, for 2 years? Or
Yeah, that's a great question.
you set them up and let them go?
That's always the goal. That's always the goal. And essentially what some of the exciting feedback that I get from some of my clients is that they, their people in their household, their family, their kids, their husbands, wives, people around them start to change their habits and lifestyle because they've changed their habits and lifestyle. They're setting a great example. So that's an end goal for me. There are definitely clients that I have that have stuck around with me for 3, 4, 5 years that enjoy the training. We're always growing. We're always learning more and more. I'm learning more and more, so I'm able to give more value to my clients for long periods of time. And also things change in our lives, right? So things might be different from our late 20s to our early 30s to our mid 30s to our late 30s, 40s, right? There's different things that are happening in your life. So I always aim to start and work with someone for a year, especially in somewhere like Canada, we're experiencing seasons, a lot of holidays, things change. So I want people to feel confident with how to navigate through the seasons. And then if people are choosing to continue, that's always great as well.
Okay, great. It's always important to keep fit and healthy. So you can outsource your fitness to a trusted professional. Will Haywood. Thank you. Thank you, Will. Thank you for coming.
Having me.
Thank you. Don't go away. We have more coming up. Welcome back. In this segment, we're talking tariff. My guest today is Alex Gregory. Alex, welcome to the show. Can you please introduce yourself to our audience?
Well, I just want to say what a pleasure it is to be here with you today, Clover. Obviously, we're just coming off a federal election, so it's a great opportunity to come in, talk a bit about, the situation with the election, the economy, and the impact of tariffs on not only Canada, but the world as a whole.
Okay, great. Now that the government is formed, tariff is upon us. What do we do? What do we expect?
Well, I think that voters yesterday, as of the recording of this episode, really spoke about the need for consistency and transparency in the economy. Given what's happened the last 3 months, particularly since the U.S. president took office, there has been a lot of chaos and a lot of uncertainty in the markets. And tariffs, particularly in key sectors like food and the agriculture sector, the auto market, and other associated sectors, have really played havoc with the fortunes of middle class, not only Americans, but Canadians as well. So it's going to be very interesting going into the summer with this reformed minority, potentially majority liberal government, and seeing how they respond to President Trump's threats against the economy as a whole.
How will the tariff affect us now that a government is formed? It's still looming, and the U.S. administration is not slowing down. I think it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Yeah.
What can we expect in the next couple of months?
I think especially the last, I would say 3 to 4 months since former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau left office, it really left us in a lot of a lurch. And because of that lurch, it feels like the U.S. government has had plenty of opportunity to sort of, or at least try to run roughshod over us in terms of making threats towards our sovereignty, threats towards, taxing us out of existence essentially and taking our natural resources, essentially co-opting our way of life. So now with some stability in government, I want to see, Liberal leader Mark Carney, Prime Minister-elect, and the rest of his cabinet start out on the right foot and respond aggressively to those tariffs and indicate that not only is Canada not for sale, but that we're going to have a very diversified strategy that will combat and hopefully nullify these tariffs moving forward into the months ahead.
We have seen it trickling down in all grocery prices. Yeah. How do you think they'll handle that now?
I think that the situation is going to get worse before it gets better. I hate to say it like that, but when you have situations where the price of food in some cases has doubled or even tripled, I mean, just today, for instance, there was a news story about an online retailer called Temu. They're charging upwards of 200% to 300% just in tariffs against retail clothing. We haven't seen how that's filtered out to the agricultural sector, the food market as of yet. And I think that a lot of consumers are still not quite understanding the impact of tariffs, especially going into a season where there may be shortages of staples like eggs, milk, dairy products, and the like. So I just want people to be reasonable and understand that, we're not out of the woods yet, even with a new government. I think that there's going to be and continue to be a lot of uncertainty in the way that President Trump and his cabinet respond to not only the Canadian government, but other potential trade partners like China. There's a potential trade war brewing on the horizon. So I think that the situation is going to get worse before it gets better.
But what do you think will eventually happen? What's the end goal? All this tariff upon us and no leniency, what's the end goal you think the U.S. administration is after?
If I had to guess, and I am not an expert in economics, I don't know a whole heck of a lot about policy, but I think that at some point within the last year or so, the U.S. government looked at their finance situation. They're, what, $39 trillion in the hole. And they realized that they wanted any hope of keeping their country alive, they had to push the gas pedal and tax the rest of the world. And that's exactly what's manifested itself in Donald Trump's first 100 days in office. You've seen chaotic announcements, sometimes being switched hours after the fact. You've seen threats of annexation. You've seen threats of trade wars. There's really not any path to getting us to an equilibrium until the situation at the top of government is sorted out. Because right now, nobody seems to really know who's driving the bus. It feels like there are counterproductive announcements being put out each and every single day. It's causing a lot of uncertainty, a lot of fear in markets throughout the world. And I think that until that situation is remedied and there's more stable leadership at the top, nothing's going to be solved. Not with tariffs, not with, a lot of the situation that's going on right now in the world, a lot of the chaos, I don't think it's going to be addressed until there's more stable leadership at the top.
And our dollar is being attacked. Our dollar is just bouncing. What do you think is going to happen to the Canadian loonie?
I think that it's going to enter a period of stability, but that's going to take another 2 to 3 years. I think that if the populace agrees with Prime Minister-elect Mark Carney's plan to build more housing, to really lean into renewable energy, and start positioning Canada as a leader in the energy, environment, and housing market, and really start building out that supply to meet the needs of international newcomers to Canada, then we can start to position ourselves as not only a force to be reckoned with, but one that can trade on a much more assured footing with other countries, not just the United States, but with China, with Australia, UK, and our other trade partners.
Then there's also the talk about retaliatory tariffs. Do you think that's a good thing? Should Canada be doing retaliatory tariffs?
I don't think they have a choice. I think that when a leader comes at you and says, we can put up to 100%, 150, or even 250% tariffs on specific sectors without understanding why and how prices are the way they are, whether that is competitive or otherwise, you have to respond in an aggressive fashion. You have to target the markets, the industries where you feel that your adversary, for lack of a better word, is most vulnerable. You've seen it manifest itself in the U.S. bourbon sector. You've seen companies like Jack Daniel's complaining that their sales have dropped off a cliff because there are few to no sales going into Canada anymore. So I think that Canada, or specifically the Liberal Party that's now taking the reins, understands the pain points to hit the U.S. at, but I think it's going to take a long time to get to a sense of stability within the Canadian dollar specifically.
And as we wait for stability, there's also the interprovincial trade.
Correct.
So that's affected, that's within us, right, on our territory.
It's going to take years to remove those barriers. Obviously, I think the biggest hurdle right now is Alberta. Creating a coast-to-coast pipeline is going to be a very interesting endeavor, but it's going to take, I would expect, 5 to 10 years at a minimum to get that infrastructure in place. And, it's ironic that the likes of, Daniel Smith, Pierre Poilievre, and Donald Trump really created so much rhetoric and so much negativity that, in my mind, voters gravitated to the Liberal Party to create a more stable sense of, consistency of leadership. So I think if we take nothing else away from the election, we have to thank them for giving us the situation we have, because at least with the Liberal Party in play, and that's not to discount the Conservatives, I think with the Liberal Party in play, there are a lot of long-term solutions that are being worked on right now, moving into the next 5 to 10 years, and I hope a lot of those plans come to fruition.
I wondered when the American administration speak about tariffs, I wonder if they're just saying something. They just wanted to see what we will do.
I think there's a perception that, there's some kind of, as President Trump likes to say, 4D chess, where they're moving 4 moves ahead of the rest of the world. But everything I've seen so far is just chaotic and scattered. You've seen tariffs announced that are seemingly rescinded hours later. You've seen out-of-turn comments about making Canada the 51st state, which is so illogical in so many ways that I don't even want to really dignify it with a response. You have other countries who are now saying to the U.S., we haven't spoken to you. We have no idea what you're talking about when you say we're close to a deal or, we're working on this deal. I think there's just a lot of confusion and a lot of uncertainty coming from the top, and it's having ripple effects throughout the world. Not so much the stock market, which doesn't seem to be working on any sort of fundamentals right now, but more on a sense of emotion. You have a situation where Tesla misses its earning call, and it goes up another 10%. So I don't know what the heck is going on there, but I think that investors are looking more towards the long term and not thinking so much about the administration itself, but how do we get past this and where are we going to be 4 years down the line?
But getting past this, you still have to tolerate what's going on, because he keeps throwing it at us just to see. It's like pushing a button. Let's see what Canada will do. Let's see what Australia will do. And then once you respond or once you back down. Because when it comes on to the 51st state, according to the U.S. administration, the king is the head of state here. And we're a Commonwealth country. So there's no way he can touch us. That's why we have the Governor General who can step in. So we'll say Canada is safe on that part. Or our small towns are safe on that part.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in a lot of these announcements, it's almost like little bite-sized incendiary grenades that are thrown out to see what the populace is going to do. And depending on their response, they'll either proceed with kind of a full-scale, this is the sort of rhetoric we want to push forward, or if enough people push back, they can say, oh, we were just kidding. We never had any intention of doing that. But you can only do it so many times before people get wise.
Yeah.
When the king has no clothing, that sort of
Okay. For the sake of some viewers, can you just break down tariff? What is it? What is it going to do? What can it do to our economy?
At the end of the day, it's a tax against the people that is lobbied by the government to try to raise revenues across the economy. So it can be either targeted or general. Now, I don't claim to be the arbiter of, or the authority on what tariffs are, but my understanding is that it's either an import or an export tax. And a lot of the times that tax is passed down to the consumer. So if the U.S. is taxing 100% tariffs on eggs, for instance, it's not Canada that's paying the 100% markup on the eggs. They're shipping it to the U.S., but by the time it reaches the consumer, there is now, a $5 or a $10 tax levied on that item, and that's what the consumer pays at the end point.
And I understand too that with the car dealers, a particular part has to cross the border to be checked, and then it has to come back. So it's going to be tariff going, tariff coming.
Yeah.
The price for that car is going to be super expensive.
Yeah, that is the most nonsensical set of tariffs I think I've ever seen, because with a lot of auto parts, they're crossing the country 5, 10, potentially 20 times in some cases, just for one specific part. So you multiply that across all the parts, all the cars that are going back and forth, is completely nonsensical. And I think that there have been some checks and balances that have tried to be applied by the corporate sector, essentially warning the U.S. president and his cabinet about not moving too far with these tariffs because it's going to cause untold amounts of financial and economic damage. But I'm not sure they quite get the point yet. And I think that's going to take a long time before you get a cabinet or a leader who has that sense of stability and presence of mind to say, hey, this is not realistic. This is not based in any sort of economic reality. This is just based on whatever I'm feeling this week or this day. So that's my feeling.
And you think eventually we will find, as I said, it's going to get worse, then it gets better?
I think it's going to take another 3 to 5 years.
Years?
Yes.
Wow.
As long as the current administration is in power, I don't see any way this changes. These are a lot of top-down directives, and because of the chaos it's causing, because of the uncertainty, I don't see any way it changes. You could potentially, what's the word I'm looking for? You could put, what the heck is it? You could basically sue him, impeach him. You could do, you could try like economic tactics against the U.S.
It's not going to move from where it's at.
But I don't think that's going to work in the long run. I think you're going to have a really structured, really aggressive plan, and that's why I'm pleased about what's happened with the Liberal Party. I want them to execute on that kind of plan to really understand the pain points that the U.S. economy is vulnerable to and to exploit those points while pushing forward their own long-term agenda.
So tell me, what do you think will be the food insecurity based on tariff that's going on now?
You're already seeing it in the level of insecurity in the populace, the number of people who are accessing food banks in this community. Currently in Peel region, where we're recording this, approximately 1 in 7 residents are considered to be food insecure. So that means they are below the poverty line and they need to access food banks just to meet their basic needs. Now you're going, and have been in an administration the last 2 to 3 months, that has put massive markups on a lot of prices. That is translating to the middle and lower class consumer as raised prices across the board. So those who are already on the verge of poverty and food insecurity are now falling further and further behind. The food banks are completely maxed out in terms of capacity. They're having challenges just addressing the needs of residents who are accessing their services. You're seeing more and more people on a month-by-month basis, to the point that food insecurity is now considered a pandemic, an emergency rather, in Peel region and in Canada really as a whole. You're seeing major food banks in centres across the country, in Vancouver, in Ottawa, in Mississauga, Southern Ontario, who are all bringing this issue to light. And because there's so much chaos and uncertainty, a lot of the food banks and a lot of these community service organizations are almost panic buying the supplies they need up front to try to mitigate the impact of insecurity and the impact of tariffs on the sector. But until you can have that sense of consistency at the top, and you can have a situation where you can say, we're not going to mark up basic staples like egg, like milk, like bread, this situation is going to continue. I think people are going to fall further and further behind. We're already seeing it manifest.
It seems as if those who were constantly donating to food banks so that recipients can have something are having a hard time even donating.
It's not so much the people who are donating, it's the margins across the board. So the dollar that was invested 5 years ago and that could get, 2 or 3 loaves of bread is now only getting 1 loaf of bread for that same dollar. So now you have a situation where money is not being stretched as far as it can be. And food banks, they're experts at stretching dollars. They're experts at stretching budgets. But you can only go so far before being faced by tariffs on 100, 150% on staple items and specialty items as well. So it's really manifesting itself in a lot of ways, and it's almost like the auto sector. You're having this massive domino effect that's causing almost an entire class to fall further and further behind. And this was something I thought about the other day, and as a grant writer, as someone who works in the fundraising sector, I deal with a lot of organizations here in Southern Ontario who deal with food insecurity, and they're finding it harder and harder just to meet their basic needs. They're looking to diverse sources of funding, they're looking to corporate sponsors, they're looking to major federal and provincial funders, but they're still having trouble meeting those basic needs for the public. And it's almost getting to a situation where a not insignificant part of the public is just trying to meet their basic needs by accessing food banks. It shouldn't be that way.
No.
But this terror situation is just exacerbating it.
Have they highlighted a point like maybe they should start budgeting differently or budgeting better so that they can meet their goals?
They already have been. And in some cases, it's already manifested in layoffs across the board. The Mississauga Food Bank just announced, I believe it was just over a month ago, that they had to let several senior staff members exit because they simply didn't have the budget to pay them anymore. And that if you're going to prioritize between a staff member
And a volunteer.
yeah, keeping someone fed and away from, a food insecure crisis, you're going to take the food versus the staff member.
So it's that bad. How about them reaching out to food companies to donate to these food banks so that they can give to folks?
That's already being done, but those companies are also stretched thin. Because think about how many regions and cities there are across the country. You have, Dempster's, you have Dairy Farmers of Ontario. A lot of these organizations, a lot of these corporations offer grants already, many of which go to food banks. They donate record numbers of food and food stocks in some cases, and it's still not enough to meet the basic needs of some residents.
So our government has to do something like pronto regarding this topic.
I believe it's one of the most critical issues of our time.
What do you see happening?
What do I see?
Yeah.
That we're in, if I'm being blunt, I think we're in for another 3 to 4 years of chaos before things finally start to smooth out. I don't see tariffs going away until the administration changes, until you get to a point where there's more level-headed individuals at the top of the chain making decisions that are not unilaterally impacting hundreds of thousands of residents in not just Canada, but across the world.
Or probably for Canada, if we can find other ways to have our goods come in our country instead of crossing the U.S. border, we could probably divert from tariffs.
I believe
a
that.
bit.
Yeah, I believe there is a way to do that, but it's going to take time to reorient those sectors to make it more central and more insular versus the interdependent trade situation we've enjoyed with the U.S. for the last, 70, 80 years. We've been so reliant on each other as trade partners that now to bring something like this out, it's really caused a lot of uncertainty in the market. And there's no real way to speed through and try to drop those interprovincial barriers to try to essentially restart those sectors without a clear understanding of where you are and where you want to be down the line.
So do you think Buy Canadian, Support Canadian will work?
In the short term, yes, but there needs to be long-term plans and credible plans about how to reorient our industries to make ourselves not so reliant on the United States. I believe that's one of the critical issues of our time.
I think that's one point that he raised in doing what he's done. They realize that we should be so independent that we do not have to rely on them.
Correct.
Yep.
But it's going to take years to get to that point.
That's the sad part. Thank you so much, Alex, for coming on and sharing with us. Welcome back. My next guest is an author, and he will be talking to us about societal issues that we soon cannot avoid. Please welcome Joseph Monachino. Joseph, welcome. It's nice to have you again.
It's a pleasure being here.
Okay, so we're looking at the way in which our society is going. The world is going crazy right now, and as we narrow it down to the areas that we live in, and AI is taking over, what's the big thing that's coming for us?
Well, it's happening very rapidly is large swaths of jobs are being eliminated because of AI. And what happens is people who've had jobs for 20, 30, 40, or even 50 years, the same job, those jobs are being eliminated. So even if they go on government benefits or have savings, it'd be extremely hard to make ends meet. So something along the lines of a universal basic income would help people make ends meet and perhaps save a little bit of money also.
So having lost a job that you've had for, say, 15 years, it's hard to probably get started in the economy. Probably age is a factor, or someone wants to retire early. So that's where the government will come in?
Yes. The idea of UBI is money that the government provides all citizens without going through any government red tape. It is given automatically without on top of any income that a person already has, whether it's government benefits or a regular job.
So it hasn't started, but it's not a matter of how it's going to be when.
Yeah, it would be a matter of when.